Every cryptid on this list can kill you. That's not the hook, that's the premise. We're ranking the ones where survival was never really on the table, starting from the bottom with something small and way more unsettling than it has any right to be. Dover Demon. In April 1977, 3 teenagers in Dover, Massachusetts independently spotted the same creature across 2 separate nights. 4 feet tall, watermelon-shaped head, glowing orange eyes, and no nose, no mouth, nothing. Just a smooth, featureless face staring back at you. Police called it a school vacation hoax, but all 3 witnesses produced matching sketches without ever comparing notes. 3 kids drawing the same faceless thing across 2 different nights in 2 different locations is hard to wave away. No visible facial orifices means this thing doesn't need conventional senses to detect you. It was spotted moving through multiple locations, actively searching for something. The Dover Demon sits at the bottom of this list because it's small, but small doesn't mean harmless. A 4-foot creature with no mouth that somehow still knows exactly where you are is a lot less funny standing 10 feet away on a dark Massachusetts road. But if the Dover Demon unsettles you, wait until you hear about the thing that showed up right before a bridge collapsed and killed 46 people. Mothman. The original witnesses didn't call it a bird, they called it a man. On November 15th, 1966, 2 couples driving near a former World War II munitions plant in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, spotted a 7-foot black creature with glowing red eyes standing at the roadside. Linda Scarberry described it specifically as a slender, muscular man with white wings. The newspaper headline the next morning couldn't even categorize it. Couples see man-sized bird, creature, something. But here's the part that sits uncomfortably in your head no matter how you explain it. Sightings lasted exactly 13 months, then stopped the same week the Silver Bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. This thing didn't attack anyone. It just watched, and then it vanished. Now picture actually encountering it. A 7-foot humanoid with functional wings means altitude advantage, aerial speed, and enough physical mass to overpower you on the ground. Yet there's no high ground you can reach that it can't reach faster, but at least Mothman stayed near the surface. The next one lives somewhere you can't even scream. Ningen. Every cryptid we've covered so far has terrified eyewitnesses. People shaking, people running, people calling the police. The Ningen terrified absolutely nobody because it was invented on a Japanese message board in the mid-2000s. A bunch of internet users collectively decided to imagine a massive humanoid creature lurking in subantarctic waters, and then they described it in such specific detail that cryptozoological communities worldwide started taking it seriously. But here's where it gets interesting. 2 versions of this thing exist. The first is a whale-sized aquatic humanoid, 20 to 30 meters long, with a distinctly human face and hands. For scale, that's longer than a blue whale. The second version is somehow worse. A 10-meter head on legs, just walking around on ice like that's a normal thing to do. The fact that humans collectively imagine something this specific and this wrong-looking entirely on their own is almost more disturbing than an actual sighting. But don't let the fictional origin fool you. A 30-meter humanoid in open ocean would capsize boats without trying, and you'd have 0 warning before it happened, and that's a creature people made up for fun. The next one, it left real animals drained of blood across 2 continents. Chupacabra. The folklore version of this thing has hypnotic red eyes and drains blood through surgical puncture wounds. The scientific version is a hairless coyote with skin disease. And honestly, the science might be scarier. The first documented attacks happened in 1975 in Moca, Puerto Rico. A cow was found dead with precise puncture wounds in its skull, and over the following weeks, more than 90 additional livestock were killed. Locals called it the Moca vampire. But here's the part that makes your skin crawl. In a single night, 34 chickens were slaughtered on one farm. Whatever did this wasn't just hungry, it was efficient. One farmer actually interrupted what appeared to be 2 6-foot Puerto Rican boas preparing to attack a 600-pound cow. The snakes were never confirmed as the culprit, and the kills kept happening. Then, in 2010, scientists identified the real explanation behind most North American chupacabra sightings: coyotes ravaged by severe mange. The mite Sarcoptes scabiei strips the hair, distorts the face, and leaves the animal in so much pain it can't hunt normal prey anymore. So it turns to livestock. A diseased, desperate, pain-maddened, predatory canine with absolutely nothing left to lose is actually a more coherent threat to an unarmed human than any monster. Sometimes, the truth doesn't debunk the legend, just makes it worse. And speaking of creatures that have terrorized people for centuries with 0 explanation, wait until you hear about the Jersey Devil. Jersey Devil. In January 1909, something tore through New Jersey and Philadelphia that nobody could explain. Over the course of a single week, thousands of people across 2 states reported seeing the same creature or finding its tracks. Schools shut down, factories closed. A Philadelphia streetcar was physically attacked. A professional hunter was so convinced the thing was real that he put a bounty on it. But here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't a slow trickle of campfire stories. Thousands of independent witnesses in 7 days. That's not folklore. That's a mass event. The creature they described stands up to 10 feet tall, with a horse-like head, bat wings, cloven hooves, and a forked tail. It moves like a kangaroo on the ground, flies through the air, and produces screams that witnesses specifically described as blood-curdling. Not scary, not loud, blood-curdling. That word kept showing up over and over. Now, one Philadelphia huckster tried to cash in on the panic by displaying what he claimed was the real Jersey Devil. It was a kangaroo painted green. The fraud got caught immediately, but the genuine sightings kept coming anyway, which somehow makes the whole thing more unsettling, not less. And from a survival standpoint, this thing is a nightmare. Flight plus ground mobility means it can strike from above, reposition faster than you can track it, and scream in a way that's documented to cause panic. There is no tactical response to a predator that owns the vertical axis. You can't outrun something that flies. You can't hide from something that lands wherever it wants. But at least the Jersey Devil stays in one region. The next creature showed up once, traumatized an entire town, and might not even be from this planet. Flatwoods Monster. Up until now, everything on this list kills you the old-fashioned way. Claws, teeth, brute force. The Flatwoods Monster doesn't need any of that. It just needs you to stand near it. On September 12th, 1952, a meteor blazed across the sky over 5 states. Hundreds of thousands of people saw it. Commercial airline pilots reported it nearly clipped their aircraft. But in Flatwoods, West Virginia, a group of children watched that light disappear behind a hilltop, and they did what no one should have done. They followed it. At the top of that foggy hill, something was waiting. Witnesses described a 10-foot figure with a spade-shaped head, glowing eyes, and a dark pleated body that looked like an exoskeleton. But here's the part that actually matters. It was spewing noxious gas from its mouth. And in the days that followed, multiple witnesses developed vomiting, nausea, and severe throat irritation just from being in its presence. One UFO researcher later claimed the witnesses saw an alien pilot in a protective suit who'd made an emergency landing. A Pentagon official allegedly showed one witness classified photos of a secret moon vehicle. Neither claim has ever been verified, but forget the alien theories. The real threat is simpler and worse. This is a creature where proximity alone produces documented health consequences. You wouldn't need to fight it. You wouldn't get the chance. You'd be choking and vomiting before you got close enough to do anything. Conventional combat becomes completely irrelevant when the enemy is the air around it, and that's terrifying enough on its own. But the next entry doesn't poison you or overpower you. It makes you walk right into the trap willingly. Jorogumo. In Japanese folklore, a common spider that survives for 400 years undergoes a transformation. It gains the ability to shapeshift into a beautiful woman, and at that point, it has spent 4 centuries alive, learning, watching, and developing a very specific appetite for human flesh. This isn't some ambush predator lunging from the shadows. The Jorogumo is a predator that engineers the conditions of your death over time. Its method is seduction. It assumes a beautiful human form, isolates a target socially, waits until the victim is emotionally invested and physically separated from anyone who could help, and then it attacks. Every single step of the process is designed around how humans think, how humans trust, and how humans let their guard down. 400 years of practice means this creature has refined its technique across thousands of successful kills. But here's the part that genuinely caught me off guard. In Toriyama Sekien's 18th century documentation, the Jorogumo isn't hunting alone. It's depicted commanding small fire-breathing spiders as subordinates, meaning while you're being charmed, smaller spiders are already positioning around you, ready to distract or injure on command while the Jorogumo delivers the kill. Every threat detection instinct you have would read this encounter as social, not predatory. You wouldn't fight back because you wouldn't know there was anything to fight, not until it was already over. And if a creature that manipulates your psychology sounds terrifying, wait until you meet something that just charges straight at you with 0 subtlety and 800 pounds of muscle. Grassman. Every Bigfoot variant gets the same treatment. Big, hairy, shy, probably not real. But Ohio's Grassman isn't shy. It's angry. And the things it does to its prey suggest something far worse than a large ape stumbling through the woods. The Grassman stands 6 to 7 feet tall, weighs between 350 and 500 pounds, and has been documented throwing large rocks with enough force to send people running. That alone makes it dangerous. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. Witnesses have found deer kills attributed to the grassman, and these aren't normal predator kills. The liver is extracted, the legs are twisted off, not bitten, not torn by claws. Twisted. That's anatomical precision. That's not a hungry animal ripping into whatever it can reach. That's a creature that knows exactly what it wants and how to get it. Dogs have been killed the same way, and it doesn't operate alone. Groups of up to 5 have been observed together, which means coordinated behavior, pack hunting, strategy. But the detail that keeps researchers up at night, hair samples recovered from an encounter site were sent to Ohio State University for analysis. The result came back unidentified. Not bear, not ape, not human. Mainstream taxonomy literally has no classification for what left those samples behind. So you've got an unclassified species that hunts in groups, dismembers prey with surgical precision, and shows zero fear of humans. But at least the grassman stays in Ohio. The next entry terrorized an entire region of France for 3 straight years, and it has a confirmed body count. Beast of Gévaudan. Every other entry on this list comes with a caveat. Blurry photos, campfire stories, internet threads. This one comes with government records, official death tolls, and a king who declared victory and was immediately proven wrong. Between 1764 and 1767, something in southern France killed approximately 300 people, not livestock, people. It targeted women and children specifically, frequently decapitated its victims, and left behind skeletal remains drained of blood. This wasn't a folktale being passed around a village. This was a national crisis. The French crown mobilized 30,000 volunteer hunters at peak response. 30,000. They poisoned bait across the countryside. Each soldiers dressed as peasant women to lure the creature into the open. A professional wolf hunter traveled from Normandy to handle the situation personally, a man with roughly 1,200 confirmed wolf kills to his name. He failed. But here's where it gets darkly funny. The king's personal bodyguard, Francois Antoine, eventually shot and killed a large wolf in 1765. The carcass was paraded to Versailles, rewards were handed out, victory was declared, and then 2 months later, the attack started again and continued for another 18 months. Here's the thing. Wolf attacks killed roughly 9,000 people across France between the late 1500s and early 1800s. Wolves killing humans wasn't unusual. The Gévaudan stood out because the violence was exceptional even by those standards. Whatever was out there wasn't behaving like any wolf anyone had seen before. This is the only entry on this list with verified, documented, officially investigated human fatalities. Real people died, a real government responded, and that real government, with 30,000 hunters and the full resources of the French crown, couldn't stop it for 3 years. Your individual survival odds against this thing were literally zero. But everything we've covered so far, every creature on this list, is something you could theoretically fight. What's coming next isn't. Skinwalker. Let's say you encounter something in the desert that shouldn't exist, something wearing an animal's body but moving with a human's purpose. You have exactly 4 options for survival, and I need you to understand that every single one of them fails. Option 1, run. A skinwalker, a Yi Nald Lushi, meaning by means of it, it goes on all fours, is a Navajo sorcerer who earned the power to shapeshift by committing the most unforgivable act possible, murdering a close family member. That transaction bought them an animal body, operating at supernatural levels. Whatever form it's wearing, it is faster than you. Running is not an option. Option 2, hide. Alpha-level skinwalkers possess what can only be described as X-ray vision, the ability to perceive human bodies through physical barriers, walls, trees, rocks, none of it matters. It already knows exactly where you are. Concealment is gone. Option 3, fight back. Conventional weapons do virtually nothing. Bullets, blades, blunt force, they bounce off a creature designed to absorb punishment that would kill a normal human. The only documented method of killing one is a silver bullet through the heart or neck. But here's the part that makes even that nearly impossible. The thing is currently wearing an animal's body, meaning the neck sits lower than your instincts expect. You'd need perfect shot placement under the worst combat stress of your life. Option 4, look it in the eyes and try to reason with it. Direct eye contact allows a skinwalker to possess your mind, not influence it, possess it. Your body becomes the weapon it uses against you, so you can't run, you can't hide, you can't fight, and you can't face it. But at least a skinwalker is bound by land. The next entry doesn't even give you that courtesy. Knucklevi. The Knucklevi has no skin. That's not a metaphor. That's not poetic license. The creature's entire body is exposed, pulsating muscle, or yellow veins, and white sinew visible to anyone unfortunate enough to look at it. Black blood moves through the vascular system in real time. The head is a horse skull with a gaping mouth that never closes, and fused to the horse's back, growing out of it like a tumor that learned to think, is a human torso, not a rider, a single organism. Orcadian islanders historically refused to speak its name without immediately following it with a prayer. That alone should tell you everything. But here's where it gets worse. The Nukkalavi doesn't need to touch you to kill you. Its breath is toxic. It spreads horse plague, crop failure, and epidemic disease as a passive consequence of moving through an area. Documented accounts state that simply observing the creature produces illness in witnesses. You don't have to fight it. You don't even have to be near it. You just have to see it, and the damage is already done. And if it decides to chase you, it will not stop. The Nukkalavi is relentless in pursuit, with exactly one documented behavioral weakness. It will not cross fresh water. Splashing water at it produces a distraction response. That's it. That's your entire survival strategy. Find a river or stream while being actively hunted by something that looks like an anatomy textbook having a nightmare. Now here's the part nobody talks about. A creature with no skin has no vulnerable anatomy. Stabbing doesn't work. Shooting doesn't work. There's no surface layer to penetrate. No organs protected by anything you could breach. You're trying to damage something that is already visibly, catastrophically damaged and functioning anyway. You've seen every wound you could inflict already exists on its body. It just doesn't care. But as horrifying as the Nukkalavi is, there's one cryptid left on this list, and it makes a skinless horse demon look manageable. Wendigo. Every other creature on this list kills you and stops. The Wendigo kills you, gets stronger, and immediately needs to kill again. That's not a predator. That's a biological feedback loop with no off switch. Ojibwe, Cree, Naskapi, and Innu traditions all describe the same thing: a gaunt, towering figure with skin stretched translucent over protruding bones, fingers elongated into tearing claws, moving impossibly fast despite looking like it should already be dead. And that appearance isn't weakness. It's the permanent condition of something that has been consuming, growing, and starving again for longer than anyone alive can document. Here's where it gets worse. Every time a Wendigo feeds, it grows larger, but growing larger makes it hungrier, and that hunger never resolves. It is biologically incapable of being satisfied, which means it is biologically incapable of stopping. Every other entry on this list has a failure point, a documented weakness, a scenario where survival was at least theoretically on the table. The Wendigo's core mechanic eliminates that possibility entirely, but that's not even the most terrifying part. Elder Wendigos don't just hunt, they warp the world around them. Documented oral traditions describe the oldest ones controlling woodland animals, manipulating weather patterns, and summoning darkness thick enough to conceal entire geographic regions. You're not fighting a creature at that point. You're fighting an environment. And then there's the gut punch that separates the Wendigo from everything else on this list. Wendigo psychosis is a clinically recognized culture-bound psychiatric syndrome, an intense, documented craving for human flesh combined with the paralyzing fear of becoming a cannibal. This is the only cryptid on this entire list that medical science has officially acknowledged has a measurable effect on human psychology. Other cryptids might kill you. The Wendigo is the one that could become you. That's why it sits at the top. Not because it's the biggest, the fastest, or the strongest, but because it's the only one that expands by destroying you, and in some traditions, it can corrupt humans into becoming additional Wendigos. It doesn't just end your life, it recruits you. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.